All right, guys, we're live. Thanks for tuning in today. We are doing a pretty fun one. I've actually discussed this before on previous Facebook Live sessions on our Facebook page, obviously, on the Watercraft Journal. So I wanted to welcome you all today. We're going to have some fun on talking about Kawasaki. And I'm actually this is actually kind of fun. I am just doing a little bit of research, finishing up right now on what was the average price hike from 2020 to 2021. It was brought to my attention that there was quite a bit of price hiking, and that's natural is for prices to go up. But I'll go over some of these numbers. They're actually, in some cases, they're actually really like pretty substantial. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in, guys. These have been a really fun. These have been really fun for me to chime in and answer questions live, and to be able to talk to everyone in this format through our YouTube and through YouTube Live. And so again, if you guys ever have questions, if you want to ask me personally, you can do it here live as we do it, or you can always leave a comment later, and either myself or one of my team will go through and answer. I typically leave like an initial or my name when I answer personally. But anyhow, I got a lot of notes to go over. I've been doing a little bit of homework, a little bit of research, but we did want to talk about Kawasaki. So where to begin? I grew up with Kawasaki's. I grew up with my family. We had JS 440s and 550s, and I remember learning how to ride a stand-up on an old 550, red 550. And Kawasaki, although obviously those who know the history, that Sea-Doo was the first quote-unquote personal watercraft in 1968 and through most of 69. There was supposedly one or two 70 models that got out, but some hardcore research guys who are into the restorations of these early Sea-Doos, they're all on the fence. They argue back and forth. So I just don't want to get in the mix on that one. That's going down the rabbit hole. But with Sea-Doo, what happened was that Clayton Jacobson sold his original design to Sea-Doo. They bought it. It was a moderate performer. They weren't really interested in going deeper with that model, so they backed out of future personal watercraft. And this is late 69 into 70. At the same time, Clayton had a design for a jet drive stand-up, and he approached Kawasaki. Kawasaki loved it, and they bought the patent, and they came up with the original 400s. And those were kind of a light lime green and yellow, and then later went into the 440s and then to the 550s, and then so on and so forth. But Kawasaki, for most people, is accredited with being the brand that started it all. And Kawasaki has a lot of equity when it comes to a lot of us who have a deep root in nostalgia. And so I find more people who are riding Sea-Doos and Yamahas who in their heart are really diehard Kawasaki guys. They bleed green. And so that has been kind of the conversation that I've had with a lot of people is, if Kawasaki made XYZ, I would drop whatever I have now and I would jump on Kawasaki. They simply don't build the product that I want. And we know that Kawasaki is aware of the market research, and Kawasaki knows what's selling. They know what Yamaha is selling every year, and they know what Sea-Doo is selling every year. They all see these same numbers. In fact, it's a little known secret that they actually share their numbers in between each other. And they look at what's selling, what's moving, what's been a success, what's been moderate, what's been kind of cool. and cool as in not so hot. And they're very, very aware. They're not dingbats. They're not sitting up in their Irvine building just picking their nose and going, well, maybe we should just make the same thing as before. And they actually are engaged. There are people who are hardcore and diehard personal watercraft enthusiasts at Kawasaki. The question is, well, what's going on? How come we don't see the dynamism? We don't see a lot of the energy at a Kawasaki that we might see with a Sea-Doo or with a Yamaha. And that goes back to a little bit of corporate culture. And I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but I will say that, especially with the fans, God knows we've got brand loyal fans here, and we got guys who are absolute diehard Yamaha and diehard Sea-Doo and diehard Kawi for that matter. And so if you ask a Sea-Doo guy who loves Sea-Doo what their business dynamic is, you'll see them throw out a lot of things like, oh, they're like Apple, or they're like Nike, or they're these really aggressive, innovation forward brands. And Sea-Doo's the one who jumps out going, hey, we're going to try this and we're going to try that, and we're going to make a Polytech Spark, or we're going to come up with brakes, or we're going to have full suspension, or they kind of let it all hang out there. The bad side of that is that the people are kind of the test subjects. We're the guinea pigs. And unfortunately, things get put out in trial testing out on the water through the marketplace. Yamaha is a little more reserved. Yamaha kind of observes what's going on, sees what the trend is, takes a little bit more time to develop their version of it, and then they jump in. And that's why we've seen them come later with Ride and later with certain features like sound systems, integrated sound systems, or launch controller, all the things that Sea-Doo is kind of, they jump out of the gate first, and then you see Yamaha kind of progressively come in. That's not to say that Yamaha is not innovative by any means. You see that they come in with their own spin on something. They didn't come in with a Spark. They came out with the EX. And the EX was larger, heavier, more stable, and was a little bit more of what we deemed in the magazine as a conservative or a mature response to the Spark. And that's not to denigrate Spark at all, but that's to say that's the culture of Yamaha. Kawasaki, on the other hand, Kawasaki chose not to do a Spark Fighter. They chose not to do an EX or a Spark Fighter. They came out with the SXR 1500. And that was kind of confusing to a lot of people. They said, man, why would you do a stand-up when Sea-Doo can't keep Sparks on the showroom floor, and that Yamaha comes out with an EX? So there is a culture within Kawasaki. And that culture is actually very, very respectful to their past, and very, very strongly acknowledging their past. So when they chose to do an SXR, they were really digging into the heritage and digging into, well, what makes a stand-up, and what's the Kawasaki spirit of a stand-up. And it was, for them, it was, we want something that is very, very race-friendly and very race-oriented. And that's why they came up with, quite frankly, a hull that was heavy. I mean, it's 551 pounds. It's a big stand-up, and it's long, and it's a torpedo. I mean, I had one for, I want to say 7 months, 6 months. I want to say 7 months. And I realized, I'm like, I'm not riding this like it's supposed to be ridden. I was riding it like an old Superjet. And to be honest, I'm trying to ride it like an old 800, which personally is one of my favorite stand-ups of all time. Nevertheless, when I talk to racers, when I talk to buoy course racers, when I talk to really hardcore stand-up riders, they're like, hey, this thing eats up chop like it's just cutting through butter. And a lot of these guys were very praising of the SXR. And then there's guys who are like, oh, this thing's it's just too big. And it's just, to be honest, too powerful. And so that was why the SXR was really hit or miss. Kawasaki was leaning hard on its racing heritage when it came to stand-ups, but at the same thread was kind of losing the core stand-up guys. And that is what I gotta respond to this. Sorry, fellas. All right. It's amazing multitasking. All right. Sorry. Everything's up on my laptop. So anyhow, the question is, what's going on with Kawasaki currently and where are they going in the future? So that is something we want to discuss. But at the same thread, you can't ignore what the competition's doing. So, I'm jumping ahead. I'm really jumping ahead. I have these notes and I'm jumping right into the meat of it. So let me downshift just a little bit. Just so you know what's going on with the YouTube channel, I just want to do a really quick little State of the Union sort of thing. Earlier I reached out to the audience and I did a little survey, and I said, hey guys, I'm sitting on something like 30 to 35 Facebook Live sessions that are recorded where I discuss a lot of really good technical information. There are some episodes where I'm talking about what's coming up in the future. And so obviously those aren't pertinent and I wouldn't be resharing those. But some of the episodes of Facebook Live that I did, I go into the weeds on a lot of really good technical information, and I felt it was pertinent for them to be shared here on the channel. So I did a little survey and I said, hey guys, if you don't mind, or would you be interested in, it was a question, would you be interested in me putting up one of these a week until I run out? And we got a almost unanimous voting of, yeah, totally do it. More content, the better. So every Wednesday we put up an older Facebook Live session here on the YouTube channel. And that's just discussing a specific topic. I'm not editing them at all. So it's going to be me talking about like, hey, I'm on Facebook and here's what's going on currently. But you kind of skip 5-10 minutes into it, and I start getting into the meat and potatoes of the lesson that I'm talking about. So, like for example, I have a really good one about fuel octane and pre-detonation and why some engines it's okay to run a lower octane if you're in a pinch, and then why some engines require a higher octane. And so I wanted to share that one. And I talk about engine tuning and engine oiling and engine cooling, internal operating temperatures on engines. And I thought that was a good one too. So that's the point in sharing them on the YouTube channel. The guys on Facebook who have Facebook, in fact, yeah, baby racing. Okay. Yeah. You're not even on Facebook. So that's why I wanted to populate the YouTube channel with this kind of stuff. So don't be confused. Every Sunday night, we still do the live sessions. I'm going to still do these until you guys are like, these are boring. I don't want to watch them. But which is fine. But then of course we also do our reviews and ride reviews and things like that. And those will be populating throughout the month. We do typically 2 to 3 a month. It's usually every 10 days, 10 to 12 days. And then every Sunday we'll do a live session like we're doing tonight. But every Wednesday, until I run out of them, I'll be putting up older Facebook videos. Okay, so that's that. Now let's talk about what's coming up next. Excuse me. All right. So the next video that's coming out should be coming out in about a week's time, maybe a little bit, maybe like 8 days. Is we're going to be putting up. We had a really cool opportunity. I didn't get to go to Australia, but Joshua Dowling, who writes for the Watercraft Journal, he's out of Australia. He does some fantastic work for us, and he's kind of our Southern Hemisphere editor. Josh actually flew out to Brisbane and visited K-Speed. And you guys will know, and we're going to talk about it, is he rode the one of none, the hand-built K-Speed STX 310 LX. We published that about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. He also did something really cool. He got to ride an Ultra 310 with their Stage 1 kit. And their Stage 1 kit's just 3 parts. It's an ECU reflash, it is a pump wedge, and it's an intake grate. And in optimal conditions, that Ultra will go 77, 78 miles an hour. With a full tank of gas and a big rider, we were doing about 75 and change, and he was in rough stuff. So it's like, dude, I'm going 75 and chop, and I'm a big dude with a full tank of gas. So that stage 1 kit is absolutely killer. So we got to do a review on that, and that's the next video coming out. We got lots of details on it. We got Australian and US pricing and Canadian pricing on that kit. We talked to Jamie Eade, the owner of Brisbane Kawasaki, and of course K-Speed. And Jamie just told us everything. It was great. So that's a really neat video. Please check that one out. I know it's not as exciting as what's the brand new RX-PX or the brand new GP 1800R, but that kit is really trick, especially for Kawasaki guys and for people who are looking at, getting some more speed out of an Ultra 310 or even 300. So anyway, that's what's coming up next. That's going to be showing up probably the beginning of October. Next videos coming down the line. I got, believe it or not, I still have some leftover 2020 Yamahas that are coming up. We have a VX Deluxe and an EX Sport. And the EX Sport was fully loaded with a bunch of really neat accessories. So we're going to have those coming up. And I know those Watercraft are sold out, but for people who are in the used market, those are actually going to be really useful resources for them. And then we have 2 2021 Yamahas left, and that is an EX Limited, which is their EX fully loaded with all of the accessories, and that's new for 2021. That's a new unit because they didn't have a limited option before. And then we've got a VX Limited HO, which also is a new unit. There was a VX Limited before, but it was only the 120 horse, the TR1. But now you can get the 180 horse 1812 cc motor in it. So we got those. In addition to that, we got some other really cool stuff, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit. But with the order is I'm going down to Florida pretty soon. I can't say when because I don't want people showing up, but I'll be spending a day or two with Riva. There's some really neat stuff that they're cooking up, obviously, with all the new Watercraft, and they had their hands on a lot of the new Watercraft first. So they were able to develop a product line for a lot of these machines right out of the gate. Unfortunately, Riva's not going to be at the World Finals, and that's typically when they reveal a lot of their new stuff. So I'm going down, and I get to test ride a lot of this stuff on their private lake. So that's going to be really cool. Then I'm hoping this works out, is I'm actually going to be test driving, and you guys have seen this, and this is something pretty wild, is I'm going to be test driving one of the Silver, SEALVER, Silver. It sounds like I'm trying to say silver with a twang, but Silver wave boats. And these are those ski boats. I always end up calling it a ski boat, but it's a 19 or 21 or 24 foot ski boat that docks a personal watercraft in it and uses the personal watercraft as the propulsion system. And I've been invited to come down. They've been advertising with the Watercraft Journal. It's just been a matter of coming down and finding time to do it. And the guys at Silver are like, dude, come down. We've got one, please. I don't even have to bring a ski. So this is going to be really cool. I know there was a slight update kit so that the current FX lineup will fit because of the big plastic bond rails that they have on the 19s and up. Changed a little bit of the mounting points, but those are moving, and they're actually looking. Maybe I'm telling. I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag, but they're going to be expanding like crazy next year. I think they're going from one U.S. dealership to like 6 or 7. So that's going to be a big deal. I'm already 20 minutes into this thing. I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm going to be test riding with them, and then if I can squeeze it in, I'm supposed to stop by Chris McCluggage's dealership, his Broward Motorsports in Tequesta, and we might be doing a video with Chris. And of course, Chris is Chris McCluggage. He's Chris McCluggage. So that's going to be awesome. That'll be a fun thing for us. Okay, so let's get to Kawasaki. I'm already 20 minutes into this. I am so sorry. All right, so obviously everyone knows that 2019 and 2020 have been huge sales years. All right, 2020 for Yamaha and Sea-Doo were limited because they had production shutdowns. The Noonan, Georgia Yamaha facility was shut down for about 4 to 6 weeks. And then Sea-Doo's Mexico facility, it's not Juarez, but I keep saying Juarez, but it's adjacent to Juarez. The Juarez facility was down, I want to say 8 to 10 weeks. So everyone's trying to catch up and trying to fill in those numbers and getting those production numbers up for 2021. They don't want to have a limited supply of personal watercraft like they did this year. Interestingly enough, because Lincoln, Nebraska did not have any shutdowns, or Nebraska didn't have any shutdowns, Kawasaki's Lincoln, Nebraska site did not skip a beat, and they produced their full quotient for 2020. And what's great is that that Kawasaki nearly sold out of their units. You'll have to dig if you're really hot to trot and you got to have one now. You're going to have to get on. You're going to have to have your local dealer get on and do a dealer search, because there's a handful out there, but you're going to have it shipped in to wherever you are. There's very few units out there. Thankfully, Kawasaki also was able to button up and get their 2020 line moving so that they're not looking at any excess surplus and they're not looking at a deficit. So Kawasaki is actually sitting really pretty. I talked to a representative from Kawasaki last week, and they said that, yeah, everyone's tickled pink. They're really excited about how the year went for sales, and that they're upping their production for 2021. They were motivated enough that they're like, hey, listen, we have enough demand that we can up production. They're not going to go crazy. They're not going to go, up it by 25%, but they're going to up it in the ballpark of 10 to 15%. So that's good news for Kawasaki guys, people who are interested in getting their hands on a new Kawi. They are available, and they're going to be in pretty good numbers for this next year. So 2021 is going to be a big deal for Kawi. Let's keep it on Kawi. So one of the other things that was actually really cool was that across the board, Sea-Doo, Yamaha, and Kawi, they looked at an average of 50 to 51%. It was like 50.8, but let's round up. 51% of new vehicle sales went to first-time buyers. So that's a big deal. That means the sport or the industry, however way you want to say it, the industry's growing. Fresh blood's coming in, new people are coming in, and they're jumping on it. And this isn't a flash in the pan thing. This isn't like, oh, because of COVID, people are bored and they went out and bought a jet ski. We've seen this trend escalate over the years. Jerry Gaddis and I flipped out like 3 years ago or 4 years ago when they said 48% of Yamaha new sales were first-time buyers. And we've only seen that number grow. I believe Sea-Doo said their number was something like 53% or 53.5% or 54%. So again, we're seeing a lot of new people jump in. That's awesome. That's great. So we're seeing just the industry just flourish, and that's great for new unit sales, for product sales, for aftermarket performance parts sales, for apparel and riding gear. So we're just seeing everything grow. Everything's up. So again, reason to be excited. One of the things though is there was an old sales model, and it was kind of a joke with dealers, was that when it came primarily to the STX, if you're a Kawi dealer, you bought a handful of STX models expecting not to move them until later in the season. They were a late season unit. And the reason why a lot of dealers were familiar with this process, although it's not ideal, was that in late season, Kawasaki corporate would have buybacks and different promotions so that the dealer wasn't out the payments that they were making, and a buyer could come in and get a really good deal on an STX. And these are the 15Fs. That's not an ideal business model for most people. It was lucrative, but it just made the dealer look like they had a lot of flooring, and it looked a little well stocked. But it was kind of a misnomer. It was kind of a, I don't want to say deceitful, because there was nothing deceitful about it. It just was like, hey, these things are going to wait. Unless you really want it in June, why don't you wait till September and you can get $1,500 off of this thing? And that was kind of the business model when it came to that. Now with the new STX 160 series, that hasn't happened yet. We're not seeing that same. Now, obviously, there's going to be end of the season discounts and end of the season promotions, as there are with everyone. But we're not seeing it being as vibrant, or for dealers to lean on that as much. So again, I'm getting into the weeds on this stuff, but I want to give you as much information as I get. When I get information, I typically give out about 90 to 95% of what I get, much to the chagrin of some people that they're like, Kevin should not be saying half of this stuff, but I do. Anyway, so good news. Let's see, no shutdown, higher production numbers. Check that off, check that off, check that off. Okay, so model lineup. The model lineup is rather interesting. So yes, we have the new SXR 1500. That was introduced as a 2017 model. You're not going to see much in the way of changes on that. Not until you see the inline 4-cylinder, 4-stroke, 1 liter that's in the H2 and H2Rs. Until that engine starts to be marinized and you start seeing it in other applications, we're not going to see that engine in an SXR. We just aren't. That was the engine I was hoping for the SXR, because it weighs 100, I think fully dressed, it's like 126 pounds. And the current engine, the 1500, which is a 1498 cc, that's almost 200 pounds fully dressed. That's a heavy, heavy motor. And that's a reason why the SXR weighs 1,500 pounds. Unfortunately, that H2 motor just is not slated to show up in an SXR or in a STX anytime soon. We just haven't seen anything internally that would give us a reason to say, oh, okay, hey, listen, that's coming. That's 2 years down the line. Unfortunately, no. So there's that. The 2017 SXR is going to carry on, and they're going to rotate through some colors. They went from black and white with green to black on black with green, and we might see all green. We might see some other stuff in the future. But besides bold new graphics and colors, BNG, bold new graphics and colors, you're not going to see a lot of change in that ski for a long time. All right. So then we have the new STX series. All right. Now, the neatest thing about the STX series, when they had the redesign for 2020, was, yes, the hull is the same. All right. And it's the same hull since 2004, when the first 1.5 liters got into that engine. Interestingly enough, it's also the same hull when the 1200 series motor was in there, and it's really close to the 2-stroke when it was the STXR. All right, you might remember the STXR. That's what everyone raced. Everyone was on an STXR for a long time there. All right, and the neat thing about the STX, for guys who got a bunch of gray in their beard like I do, you'll remember the STXR was white with the green, with the green and white checkers, and then there was black and white checkers on it. And Dustin Farthing, Dustin Matsouras, Chris McCluggage was on it. Nicholas Rios was on one. Everyone rode that stinking ski, and everyone won on that ski. That thing was a monster. All right. In fact, well, I haven't been to Farthing's new facility, but back when he was at Marietta, he had that thing right outside of his office window. He loved that ski because he won so many national championships with it, and so many other people did too. it was just a winning ski. And so Kawasaki in their heads like, that hull is perfect. Leave it alone. And so that hull design has carried all these years. We're talking 20 years now. And there's a lot of people who are like, cool, leave it be, leave it alone. And interestingly enough, if you roll an STX over and then you roll a GP Yamaha over, you're going to see a lot of similarities. All right. There's a lot of similarities. They're not identical, but a lot of the tracking, the straight line tracking, and a lot of the cornering prowess is because they share very similar chines. They share a very similar dead rise, which is the angle or the pitch of the V. And then they also use lifting strakes instead of step chines like CD. And those lifting strakes are what make those skis go fast and make them go fast and track straight in rough water. So anyway, I don't want to get into hull design. We're going to say that for another one. But again, the STX hull, prior to this new 160 revamp, had not changed at all and was pretty much the same. And deck hull was the same. They changed the deck, which is a new mold for 2020. Deeper footwells, all right, a little bit better posture, a little better ergonomics, better cockpit, and more storage, and the very vertical steering neck. And they put the big gas tank in it. They put the big 20.5-gallon gas tank in it. And they also broke up the STX from being just the 15F into 3 models: the 160, 160X, 160LX. In fact, I have an LX. I have a 160LX. I've actually really been enjoying that 160LX. It's got some quirks. It's got some issues. It's not perfect, but it really is a good unit. It's been really great. And unfortunately, I have to give it back to Kawasaki tomorrow. So I'm going to give it a little detailed job in the morning, and then I'll post something on Instagram saying goodbye. But yeah, I got to give that STX 160LX back. And I'll be doing a long-term review on that ski before the end of the year too. Holy cow! I got to write that down. Long-term review. Okay. So anyway, I forgot all about that. So that's been a good move for Kawasaki because that's dramatically swelled its product line. It's provided greater offerings to people. Then of course we have the Ultras. All right. There's the Ultra LX, which is naturally aspirated, 160 horse, 1.5 liter. Then we get into super. There's only one naturally aspirated Ultra, and that's the LX. Then you have the 310X, 310X SE Special Edition, which just has a different coloring, and it's got the LX seat on it. Then there is the R, the 310R, which has the anodized, they're actually electroplated aluminum steering neck. It's got a racier seat, and it's got green sponsons, but the sponsons are the same. They're literally just green. And then you have the 310LX, and the 310LX has a nicer, higher bolster seat. It's got the quote-unquote heat-resistant black seats, which aren't that heat-resistant. Ask me how I know. Then it's got the Jet sound system. And all of them now have cruise control. All of them have electric trim. And they have their little eco setting mode that tells you when you're working in the optimum fuel setting. They still have the immobilizer key. So that's carryover technology that's been around. But that hull and deck has been unchanged since 2007. Okay. So again, we're looking at a 14-year-old hull and deck, or a 14-year-old platform. So, who has the best stock sponsons? That's a hard question, primarily because it depends on the hull. I'm not going to get in the weeds on that one, but that's a very good question, Ryan. Thank you. Okay. Anyway. So look, that's the product lineup for right now. What's interesting enough, and what I've been really thankful for, is the input from a lot of you guys is that you've been throwing out holes in the lineup and saying, man, they're not touching this. They're not meeting this market segment. And what's funny is that you and I are thinking alike, is that there are holes in the lineup. Excuse me, I've been saying hull for so long. There's so many holes in the lineup. And interestingly enough, in 2014 and then in 2000, I'm going to scroll all the way up and open this up. In 2018, I did a new one. If you guys scroll all the way up to the top of the live chat, I put hyperlinks to 3 articles. All right, I joke that this is your reading notes for today's lecture. Okay, and I did what we like to call our vicious rumors and vile gossip. And that's kind of like, hey, we've heard this. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. This might be true. This might not. This is a prediction. This is what we've seen, the leaked footage. I will tell you that Sea-Doo absolutely hates that segment, primarily because I've leaked out a lot of stuff, or I just make really good predictions. And that's just because if you know how they operate, if you know their business pattern, you can call on a lot of stuff. You can be like, oh, okay, that's coming up this year. Like the RX-PX, I knew was due for a redesign 2 years ago. I was like, okay, it's coming in 2021. Anyways, so let's get to it. In these articles that I did a series. I did one in 2014. I did one 4 years later in 2018. And it was 3 skis or 3 units or 3 watercraft that could happen tomorrow. And we're going to focus on the ones I did for Kawasaki. Kawasaki, the biggest thing for me when it comes to any suggestions for Kawasaki is whether it's cost prohibitive, tooling costs. Because if it costs Cowie money, they're not going to do it. And that's a big problem. Is, oh my gosh, listen, these guys are wanting us to invent something from whole cloth. It's going to cost us $2 million in tooling. It's going to cost us $500,000 in testing and product testing. We got to send Kanamori and Fuzzy out to go testing the stinking thing for 4 hours a day for 4 months and see if they can break it out in out of Dana Point in California, which is what they typically do. Those are the 2 guys. They're the biggest workhorses at Cowie when it comes to new watercraft and developing product. So anyhow, that has been my impetus when it comes to coming up with anything that Kawasaki can do to fill in some gaps in its lineup. The biggest gap and the easiest solution right now that I can say with absolute clarity is that they need to rename the Ultra LX. They have to rename it just the Ultra. If Kawasaki names it just the Ultra, because it's basic, it's naturally aspirated. It's got a very basic seat. It's got very basic colors. Now it's in black as the black deck. They used to be white. It used to be a black hull with a white top, a white deck, and then some pretty basic, like a standard blue or a green or something pretty generic. Make that unit your rental unit. Just an Ultra. Just call it an Ultra. Take the LX off of that. Then offer another naturally aspirated Ultra, which would be the Ultra LX. All that ski should be is a naturally aspirated version of the 310 LX. Give me the seat. Give me the fancy metallic colors. Give me the jet sounds. I want cruise control. I want a waterproof case for my phone. I want blah, 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 blah. Throw every accessory you can at me, naturally aspirated. It's amazing they don't offer this. It blows my mind because it would literally cost Kawasaki nothing. Not a dime. It's literally nothing. It could literally have the exact same colors as the the supercharged LX if they wanted to cut corners. If they wanted to be super cheap and say, hey, listen, we're going to offer 2 LXs, a naturally aspirated and a supercharged. We just dropped the 310. One of them is just an Ultra LX and one of them is a 310 LX. And why is that ski important? Why is that the thing that I jump out of the gate with? Because the unit that Yamaha sells almost the most of, all right, the number 1 selling unit for Yamaha is the VX Cruiser HO, all right? It's the highest level, well, it was the highest level of their recreation segment, Watercraft. But in addition to that, they sell all of their naturally aspirated FX cruisers, FX HO, FX Cruiser HO. And they typically sell those, I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be mean, but they sell it to people in their 50s and 60s. They sell it to the cruisers. They sell it to the long distance club riders. They sell it to the people who are like, listen, man, I'm putting my feet up. I got my wife on the back. We're in comfy clothes. I got my cup holder here with my drinks. I got a little cooler, and I'm going to go ride for the whole day. And they want fuel mileage is number one. Comfort is number two. Creature comforts like accessories and cruise control and eco mode and all those things is number three. Sea-Doo's hip to this too. That's why the GTX line grew a little bit. All right. There's the GTX 170, which is naturally aspirated, and you can get the IDF on the 170, but you can't get it on the 300. You can get it on the limited 300, but not the GTX 300. Figure that one out. All right. And the reason being for that is not a mechanical difference. There's no mechanical difference. It's because they know that the people who buy the GTX 300 are going to modify the hell out of it. Same thing with the RXTX 300. People who buy a limited 300, they've got every bell and whistle. So they're not going to modify it. I mean, some people might put sponsons on it. Don't get me wrong. But the person who buys a black GTX 300 or a red, or no, they're not red anymore. They're purple or yellow RXTX 300. Those guys are going to hot rod the hell out of it. So they're not going to put an IDF on it. But you can get an IDF on the 230 and the 170. Sea-Doo knows who's going to buy these things. They're paying attention. All right. And it's important for people like me to pay attention to what they're paying attention to. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me know if I'm going too fast. So Yamaha and Sea-Doo are appealing to those cruiser people, to those long distance miles per gallon people who want luxury, but they don't want the supercharged. Why Kawi is ignoring that group blows my mind. I mean, it absolutely blows my mind. I can't figure it out because that unit could sell out the door, especially with a 20 and a half gallon tank. Let's go over the numbers here because this is actually something really, really cool. Is Kawasaki, believe it or not, leads in storage capacity, 48 gallons of storage capacity. That's more than the Sea-Doos. Well, that's definitely more than the full-size Sea-Doo. The full-size Sea-Doo only has 27 gallons, believe it or not. All right. The RXPX has more storage than the full-size GTX at 43 gallons. That's 42 and a half or something like that. All right. Figure that one out. An RXPX has more storage than the full-size STX. All right. Same thing goes with the GTIs. GTIs all have the same storage capacity as the RXT or the RXPX, excuse me. All right. Then we go to FX. FX has 40-something gallons of storage as well. But Kawi's got, I could stick my 6-year-old in the front storage bin of an Ultra. There's so much room in an Ultra. They're monsters. The bow on that thing is huge. All right. Then you got the biggest gas tank in the industry. Okay. They also have the most horsepower if you're into numbers crunching. And it is a true 310 horsepower. I actually got the dyno chart in 2014 when the 210s came out. The 310s came out. When the 310s came out. And the dyno chart was like 309.8 at standard barometric pressure. They weren't adjusting barometrics, and they weren't dropping engine coolant either. They weren't plummeting it down into the 50s. They were actually running a pretty standard tap temperature coolant through it. Well, not coolant, it's water. All right. So Kawi leads the way on a lot of these numbers. It's actually pretty impressive. The question is, why aren't people buying them? And a couple of people have been asking questions, what's their market share? Right now, Kawasaki's market share is 5.5%. I'm not joking. It's 5.5% of the market. And that's tough. Now, what's nice is that Kawi went up 11% last year in sales. So they're on a double-digit trajectory. That's good news, all right? We should be excited for Kawi on that one. We want to cheer them on. We want competition, guys. We don't want anyone to go out. We definitely don't want Kawasaki to leave. We want more people in. We want Polaris to come in. We want Honda to get off their butt and get in here. We want these guys. We want a ton of freaking units because that breeds competition. That gets more people on the water, and it just grows the industry, grows the sport. So the more the merrier. There's plenty of water, guys. Let's have fun. Okay, so interesting thing in an article, I want to bring this up, was in addition to my 2014, 2018 articles, I did 2 of those, and I brought up, I jokingly called it the Ultra LX SE. Just drop the SE and make it the LX, and you're good. You're gravy. Okay. Another thing that we did was, believe it or not, in September of 2019, when the big push was, okay, what's coming out, what's going on with the STX, I got a hold of a lot of really good inside information. And 2 items that are worth noting were design patents that Kawasaki had. And I'm going to scroll to the top again because I want to open up this page. Here we go. Okay. Because this one's important. And it's the second to top link that I put at the top. So if you guys scroll to the live chat, you're going to see it. Is the first patent design is on the flip back seat. All right, the back seat actually unlocks and folds up, and then it can actually slide all the way out if you want to remove the seats. But if you just want to access the back, there's the back seat will literally fold perpendicular, and it has a little kickstand. It works. It's not the best. It's a little kitschy. Ours actually falls off a lot of times. Every time I put the seat up, it would just kind of roll off and fall off. Not ideal, but it was a neat design. I just don't know how a single rider would access the tub in the back with the seat up in their face, and you'd have to reach around, and it's a little weird. But that design made it into production. That showed up in production. But here's the kicker. Kawasaki has a patent which they filed for in August 2017 for an electric brake. They have one. They have the design, and I put up all the schematics. I have on that article, and I will share it again, all the patent design pages for this electric brake. Interestingly enough, it is different from Sea-Doo's, and it's different from Yamaha's, because Sea-Doo and Yamaha are using the left hand. They're using a left-hand brake lever. Sea-Doo uses theirs as a brake, and it overrides the throttle, and it'll slow you down. And then if you want to reverse, you got to hold that down to hold the reverse gate down, and then give it gas, and it'll back you up. Yamaha doesn't do that. This, you can back off the trailer and around a dock just using your left hand. Kawasaki's, on the other hand, believe it or not, is all on the right hand. And a lot of you guys who are familiar with the brute force and what is the other? The KFX. Okay, I was thinking of the KFX. I couldn't think of the initials. The KFX and the brute force ATVs. There's a little thumb toggle on the driver's side. All right. If you look at these designs, and I'm not going to read the article to you. I could, but I'm already 50 minutes into this thing. What you'll find is that the thumb trigger is the brake, and then your index finger is the gas. So if you got the gas pinned, but you use your thumb and hit the brake, it'll override the throttle, and it'll slow you down. Okay? This way, they get way away from any sort of entanglement with Sea-Doo and Yamaha. They don't, because patent lawyers love to get into the weeds, and they love to sue people for even things looking like something else. So, Yamaha they won't even call it a brake. They call it a dual throttle system because they don't want any sort of lawyer mess when it comes to Sea-Doo and their patents. So everyone's kind of just marking their territory and keeping away and trying to play nice. Kawi, their design, which is 4 years old, by the way, is off the thumb, which is cool. I've never used it, so I couldn't tell you if it works or not. But in theory, looks pretty cool. And mechanically, it lets them pull something off the shelf. They're not spending a lot of money on that. So that's even better. It's a low investment cost. Even better. So if Kawi really wanted to step up, they got to get the brake on everything. Throw the brake on, maybe not the STX 160, the base 160. And obviously not the SXR. Can you imagine a stand-up with a brake? Woo! Imagine that. That'd be kind of funny. But anyhow, the rest of the 160s, the 160X, 160LX, and then, of course, all the Ultras. Throw it on all the Ultras. Unless you have, like, the rental one, the rental Ultra that I proposed. Okay, fine. Cool. Leave that be. No brake on that one. Everything else gets a brake. Throw the brake on. And I'll tell you why. And I know, guys, you're going to scream at me, you're going to yell at me. But the guys who are like, I don't need no stinking brake. Idiots only use brakes. Blah, blah, blah. I've ridden my whole life. I never need a brake. I understand. I get it. Don't use a brake. Don't ever use it. Get on a Yamaha, never use a brake. Get on a Kawi, never use a brake. By defiance. Just give it the middle finger while you're slowing down. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. Whatever. All right. But I know that in talking to Progressive Insurance, because I've been trying to get those guys into bed for a long time for the magazine, they have said that their rates are lower for Watercraft with brakes because their math comes up saying that brakes, since their inception in 2009, has saved, they can't count how many lives, but they can count an estimate over $2 million worth of damages over 10 years. So people, the braking system, as far as legal, as far as insurance goes, and as far as the Coast Guard goes, they say it saves lives. They say it saves money, injury and damage. So brakes are a good thing. All right. Yeah. Are they something to go bad? Sure. Is there something to go wrong? Sure. Do they save lives? Yes. Do they save money and damage? Yes. So which is better? The potential of possibly something maybe in a blue moon going wrong or not, or avoiding an accident. I tend to lean on the safety side of things. So call me an old lady. You can call me a shill. I don't care. Whatever. But I'm looking at the numbers. And when you look at the numbers, it makes sense. And quite frankly, you have a novice and his wife's got a rubber stamp. He's been pitching to his wife going, hey, we should get a jet ski. It'll be fun. We'll take the kids out. It'll be a great toy. We'll use it all the time. Oh, honey, it'll be great. You can pick the color. All right. So he's been really working his wife for months now. And she's like, fine, after dinner, let's go look at the dealership and let's go see what kind of jet ski you want to get. And they walk into a dealership and here's an Ultra 310R that he's been eyeing. He wants that ski. But then over here is an FX HO or an FX Limited. All right. It comes with a raft, comes with a tow rope, has brakes, comes with little bumpers on the side. And she goes, well, what's the difference? Because she doesn't know. And the dealer starts going, oh, well, this has brakes and reverse, and it comes with a raft and yada, yada, yada. And this one's one of the fastest skis that Kawasaki made. And she goes, well, does it have brakes? Well, no. Oh, well, I want the one with brakes. Even if it's a comparable unit. Let's say it's an RX TX 300 versus a 310R. She's going to say, well, I want the brakes because brakes sound safe. So again, it's a selling point. It equips a dealer to sell more units. So it behooves Kawasaki to put the brakes on. Okay, I feel like I'm beating this to death, but let's move on. All right. Is the Sea-Doo the only PWC with a GPS speedometer? Yes. By the way, the speedometer is actually very accurate until you get into the high 50s to low 60s. and then it starts to kind of round up. And that's why you see guys who are like, I went 72. And you're like, dude, on the GPS, you went 68 and a half. It's not so correct when you get into those higher numbers. But cruise control, everyone's got cruise control. Everyone's got cruise control. All right. So let's keep going. Obviously, the big ticket, and the thing that I belabored more than anything else on the planet is there has to be a competitor to the RXPX and the GP 1800R. There has to be. There has to be. There has to be. There has to be. I don't know how else to say this. If I could grab someone from Kawasaki by the ears and shake their head violently and scream into their face, there has to be a competitor to these units. I'll do it. I have to. There has to be in order for you guys to play ball. Now, for you guys who've been paying attention, been watching the videos, paying attention to the magazine, you will know that the STX 160LX, the guys at K-Speed took one and they put in a 310 motor, all right? And they called it the STX 310R. Oh, no, the STX 310LX because it has sound system on it. And Jamie let us ride it. I couldn't believe it. But, yeah, Jamie let us have it for a day. And Josh beat the hell out of it. And he's like, dude, this thing's crazy. Now, he was a little... He curbed it a little bit in the article, but when talking to me, he's like, this thing's ape. This thing's absolutely ape. It's just dangerous. And I said, well, how would you, if it was to be a production unit, what would you do? And he says, well, you don't want to tamper down the horsepower because then suddenly people don't want to buy a detuned unit because it's not going to have more horsepower than the Sea-Doo. But he says, put a snow shovel of an intake grate on it that gives it lots of traction, but just slows it down the top speed. And then you got to put the speed limiter back on it because the K-Speed unit took the speed limiter off of it. All right, there is a factory speed limiter on there, and that machine with Josh on it went 80, and he's like, "This is too damn fast." He's just like, "It's too fast." He's like, people are going to die on this thing. It's a monster. And it's not squirrely. It's not crazy. It's just a full tilt race ski. All right. It's just a full tilt race ski. And so basically, here's the best part about the K-Speed build. And this is, I left this out and I apologize. The best thing about the K-Speed build was that Jamie Eade and his team at K-Speed at Brisbane Kawasaki, the biggest thing they said was that it has to be off-the-shelf parts. It has to be off-the-shelf parts. So they cherry-picked a lot of stuff. Like they used the air intake from like a 260, and then they used the exhaust from like a 300, and they just started cherry-picking what would fit. And when it was all said and done, he goes, Kevin, I fabricated 3 parts. And he goes, and to be honest, I was out $100 in those parts. He was like, I was out $100. And he's like, that's no investment for Kawasaki. He goes, that's nothing. He's like, there's no, it's not cost prohibitive because everything we have or everything we used was stuff they already have. So it's perfectly replicable. That's the greatest thing. Good question from Ryan. How would the hull hold up with that kind of power? The STX hull, first, it's made with FMC fiberglass. All right. Kawasaki has the worst reputation for being heavy. And I want to actually address that. I did some math here. That's actually really interesting. All right. But I did it with the full-size units. I didn't do it with the STX. But the STX hull, mind you, Dustin Farthing was going, 83 with a 2-stroke? A triple, a Cowie triple. He was doing like high 70s, low 80s. All right. And well, hell, Craig Warner had a supercharged. Craig Warner raced a supercharged 300, wasn't 310 horsepower. I'll tell you that was more like 400 horse. But yeah, he was racing a fiberglass hull. So Ryan, no worries on that hull. I have all the faith in the world on that hull. It's been, if it's 20 years old and you haven't heard people saying it rips the intake grate out or it cracks or it splits or it delaminates, dude, you're golden. You're golden. Okay. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that comment. Let's talk about weights really quick. I know I'm hitting a little bit of a divergent trail here, but I want to talk about that. 2021 Kawasaki Ultra 310X has a curb weight of 1,047 pounds. All right, that's the curb weight. What does curb weight mean? Curb weight means it's full of oil. Curb weight means, in most cases, a full tank of gas. All right, that's 20 gallons of gas. There are some manufacturers who give a curb weight using half a tank of gas. My understanding is that Kawasaki's standard is a full tank. All right, and using the standard protocol of eight pounds per gallon of gas, you can take, and a quart of oil weighs a pound. And it's actually like 1.07. I looked it up earlier today. But let's just round down and call it a pound. All right. So taking out 4 pounds of oil and a full tank of gas, that drops the Kawasaki. This is actually really funny. Down to 879 pounds dry weight. So why am I looking that up? Why am I looking up dry weight? Okay. So with the K-Speed Stage 1 reflash, should Ultra 310 owners be worried about the pistons? Good question. Okay. Mark, can I come back to that? I want to come back to that question. That's a good question. So thank you. I like that one. Okay. So let's go to dry weight. The dry weight is just under 880. Okay. So why do I bring up dry weight? Because Sea-Doo and Yamaha, they don't tell you the curb weight. They tell you the dry weight because it's a lower number, and everyone likes it. It's kind of a albatross to be heavy. Like, oh, it's so heavy. Oh, it's a pig. Oh, it's a total pig. Oh, I don't want that. Okay, so Yamaha, a 2021 Yamaha FX Cruiser SVHO, because I figured big seat and all that kind of jazz, weighs 812 pounds dry. No gas, no oil. All right. Sea-Doo. This is where it gets real interesting. Sea-Doo gives a dry weight. But what's the difference between Sea-Doo and Kawi and Yamaha? Sea-Doo has engine coolant. All right. It's got a closed loop system. Dry weight, they take that coolant out. All right. They don't add the weight of the coolant. So you don't have coolant, you don't have engine oil, and you don't have a tank of gas. All right. And how much is the dry weight of the 2021 RX TX 300? Is 829 pounds. Okay. Well, that's 9 pounds heavier than the Yamaha. And it's 50 pounds. I don't know why I'm blanking on it. It's 50 pounds less than the Kawi. Well, everyone's like, oh, Kawi weighs so much. Oh my gosh, Kawi is a pig. Well, no. If you do the math, the Kawi only comes up 50 pounds heavier than a fully loaded curb weight RX TX 300. Okay. Well, everyone's like, hey, 50 pounds, that's still a lot. True. Totally true. Interesting differences. Why is it heavier? First, below the bond line, the Ultra hull has the most aggressive dead rise, meaning deep, almost vertical dead rise, V shape of any personal watercraft. All right. It's got the piston. Yeah, the pistons are hypereutectic pistons. All right. That is basically a metal powder that is compressed and oven baked. All right. Kawasaki's solution for those pistons is to dump fuel. All right. Is to soak them. So that's why Kawasaki notoriously has bad fuel mileage, is because they're blowing fuel onto the pistons to lower the internal operating temperature of those pistons. Again, you know what? Hey, wait. Lindsay and Mark, I actually answer your questions. Yes, the curb weight of the SXR is 551 pounds. You are correct. But again, that's what they go off of. So let's back up. So 50 pounds. Why? Where does that 50 pounds come from? First, how much of the Sea-Doo is, quite frankly, plastic? How much of the Sea-Doo is plastic? All the fairings, the hood, top deck, not the deck, but top deck, that's above the deck panel, and the engine access panel and link accessory panel. That's a lot. That's a lot of lightweight plastic. All right. Sea-Doo is really pushing dropping weight. How do we get the weight down? Get the weight down. Get the weight down. All right. Another thing is their version of their CM tech, Charlie, is it Charlie Mega? All right, you veterans, you got to correct me. What's the alpha code for M? I know Charlie, but what's M? Is it Mega? Anyway, but CM Tech. All right, the CM Tech is actually lighter. All right, Mike. Thank you, guys. Charlie Michael. Okay, Charlie Mike. Okay, why did I blank on that? Oh my gosh. Okay, so anyway, you have the deepest hull, and it is made out of FMC fiberglass, traditional layered fiberglass. Okay, you can watch videos of how they layer their fiberglass. That is why Cowies don't crack hulls. Cowies don't puncture easy. Cowies don't crack. You don't see Cowies delaminating. You don't see Cowies splitting and peeling the paint off. All right. They don't flex, and they don't oil can, and they don't crack. Okay. Yamaha's hulls, all right, they're the Nano XL hull, not so much with Nano. All right. You don't see a lot of Nano hulls, the regular Nano 1, Nano XL hulls delaminating. The reason why a lot of the Nano XL 2 hulls you see people on the internet, delaminated or cracked. All right. 2 reasons. Okay. Nano XL is very thin. The bond itself is actually really strong. All right. I've seen testing where they literally take a pneumatic ram and they push into the hull, and the hull will literally bow and bounce back. But the paint cracks because it's painted. All right. And it'll delaminate. And that's unfortunate, especially if you're going fast and the cracks are already pre-existing and the water starts intruding, and that water intrusion gets underneath and it just will peel the whole bottom off of it. Okay. And that is because the Yamaha hull, especially rough ones, will flex. They give. And it's intentionally designed to give. I would jokingly call it oil canning, because like an oil can will go boom, 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 boom. Well, the Yamahas will give. And if you're a hardcore racer, if you're Eric Francis or Brian Baldwin, and you're out there doing P1 Aqua X, and you're just banging through, like Daytona Beach and just total trash water. If you hit really, really hard, you have a potential for failure. I've seen very few failures with people who are casual riders. So I don't subscribe to Yamaha hulls are total failures the same way I don't subscribe to every carbon seal in a Sea-Doo is bad. I don't believe the haters. I've seen the numbers. I see the numbers, guys. I get all these numbers. All right. They share them with me. And the numbers are fractals. They're tiny. So anyway, okay. I thought that was some interesting notes about weight. So let's talk about the 2 units, because I'm already an hour and 10 minutes into this thing, and I'm tired, and I'm sure you guys are too, is that the 2 biggest things are addressing the cruisers, the long distance mile per gallon cruisers, and then the speed enthusiasts. All right. The 2-seater recreation sized high horsepower skis, the RXPX and the GP 1800R. They have to have a competitor to that. And thankfully, we've seen we've seen it happen. All right. Honestly, it's my opinion that if Kawasaki expedites a STX, oh God, I pray they call it the R. Call it the STX-R and have it come out white with the checkers on it. Oh, that'd be so cool. That would be the coolest thing. They would sell every one of them. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you this story. 2014. It's January of 2014. I've been invited down to Duck Key in the Florida Keys to test ride the new 310 Rs. It was the first of the 310 Rs. Okay, and they had all the engineers down there, and it was a big deal. And I'm sitting at a dinner table. I'm going to get this. I'm sitting at the dinner table with some of the biggest names at Cowie. All right, and they just did their presentation, big old presentation. And I'm sitting next to Jerry Gaddis, and we're just like, great, this is cool, awesome, love it. And then dinner comes, and we all sit down, and we're all eating our chicken or whatever. And these guys lean in, and they go, all right, Kevin, what are we missing? I go, what do you mean? And they go, I know you got an opinion. You run your mouth. What are we missing? And I laugh, and I sit back in my chair, and I put down my fork. And they're like, and Kanamori goes, if you tell me it's a stand-up, I don't want to hear it. We know. We want a stand-up, a 4-stroke stand-up. And I laugh and I go, no. You guys need a 310 horsepower STX. You need one right now. And this is 2014. And I said, guys, I'm telling you right now, you could charge $16,000. You could overcharge the hell out of that ski. It could be insulting. You'll sell every one of them. And I'll tell you what, you'll probably pre-sale half of them. And they looked at me and they're like, you think so? I go, I guarantee it. And at the time, it was the FZR. I was like, you need something to fight the FZR, and you need something to fight the RXPX. And I know there's people on Sea-Doo RXPXs and RXTXs who would drop that Sea-Doo for a Cowie. Or they drop that Yamaha for a Cowie. They bleed green. Deep in their veins, they bleed green. And it's just that there isn't the unit that they want. And you guys have all the parts. You need to do it. And this is way before Jamie did his K-Speed did his version. Way before. I mean, I don't even think I even knew who Jamie Eade was. But I was pitching these guys going, I'm telling you, you'll sell. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think there's demand. And this is my visual aid. I pulled these keys out. And this is my truck keys on the bottom. I pulled these keys out, these keys right here. And I said, guys, these are the keys to my 69 Dodge Charger, which I love. And I threw them on the table. And I said, if I'm wrong, that car is yours. And they laughed there. And Jerry's like, shit, I don't know. No, okay, Kevin's serious. I'm like, I'm dead serious. You could charge $16,000 for a white with checkered STX-R with a 310 motor in it. I go, I don't care if you put an underdrive pulley on it and it only makes 300 horse. All right? You want to detune this stinking thing? Fine, detune it. I don't care. But a supercharged STX will sell. It will sell every unit. You could make 1,000 of them. Make 1,000 of them and charge $15,900. All right? Just for fun, I pulled up prices too. Okay. For example, an RXTX, full-size RXTX, last year was $15,899. So $15,900. Okay. So I go, you charge $16,000 for that ski, you'd sell every one of them. Every one of them, guaranteed. Or I'll sign the pink slip over my car. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, that was 6 years ago. I keep thinking 2021. It's in my head. Sorry. But no joke. I said, guys, I promise you, hand to God, you'll sell every one of them. And Jamie beat him to the punch. And Jamie proved that you could do it with off-the-shelf parts. And then at the same thread, I'm thinking, Well, why aren't you paying attention to the cruisers? Why aren't you paying attention to the older crowd who just want fuel mileage? And so that is why I'm proposing these two units. I don't think there really needs to be anything else. A basic rental Ultra. Okay, cool. Naturally aspirated, no frills, nothing on it. But put the brakes on. You have the patent. Cowie has the patent. They have it. All right. I don't know what it'll cost in tooling, but I know they paid for it. They've already paid for the patent. That's the biggest thing. Biggest thing is paying for the patent. Tooling is second. Second, you gotta seal up the market share by filling those holes in their lineup. And if they did that, I think it'd be a home run. But here's the most important thing, and I can only spend probably 4 minutes on it because I don't want to go too far deep. The biggest hurdle for Kawasaki is not the lineup. The biggest hurdle, quite frankly, is the dealer network. The dealer network is in bad shape. I talk to a lot of guys who are dealers. I have a lot of them who advertise in the magazine, and they're like, our dealer rep only calls when it's time to buy a unit. Our dealer rep is impossible to get a hold of. If we've got questions, if we've got a problem, our dealer rep is non-existent. And that is basically in the U.S. I can't speak for Australia. I can't speak for Canada or internationally for that matter. But in the U.S., the dealer network is in bad shape. And that is because the dealer reps are not motivated. They're not motivated to move Watercraft. Now, great points were shared in the discussion regarding the side-by-sides. It took some years for Cowie to get on board with a performance side-by-side. But the new side-by-side is a fighter. It's a really good, aggressive, competitive unit. That has given a lot of people who have a foot in off-road and a foot in Watercraft. They're like, hey, wait a minute. Did you guys see what Cowie did with their side-by-side? The new Terex. The new Terex is a monster. It's bitching. It's great. It's going to go after Polaris. It's going after them for blood. So that is the biggest thing. And I was really racking my brain today. Really, when I announced this video, I started saying, I personally don't believe in bringing up problems without offering a solution. Because if you just bring up problems, you're just a complainer. You're worthless. You're a Democrat. I'm sorry. But if you have a solution, offer that solution. So what is the solution to the dealer network? What's the solution for that? And this is a tough one because a lot of the guys who are in that dealer network have been there a long time and they're kind of dug in. So what I suggest is kind of a Hail Mary. And the Hail Mary is dealers, harass the hell out of your dealer rep. All right? Drive them insane. And when the time comes to have a dealer meeting, go around them. If you're dissatisfied with your dealer rep, go around them. Go to corporate. All right? For you guys who might be interested and are looking for a new career, start applying. Start spamming Kawasaki. That's my solution. Offer to do the job those guys aren't willing to do. That's the solution. Replace the old blood with new blood. Motivated, excited, enthusiastic, hardworking, goal-driven people who are going to make Kawasaki the leading brand. There isn't those. There's a deficit of those people, and it's the dealer network. Dealers will sell whatever they can. Dealers will. Billy, I see you. You want that job? Hit up corporate. Find out. You know what? I'll tell you what. You're in Louisiana. Find out who the regional rep is. I'll help you do it. I know Billy. Billy's a friend of mine. Billy, I'm telling you, You bleed green. You and your wife are the most hardcore Cowie people. Holy crap. I love you and your wife. I love you guys. I think you guys would be a fantastic 1-2 punch for Cowie. But anyway, I'll help you out. Okay. I'll try. I'll do what I can. I'll try. But honestly, that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. Because dealers are going, hey, I can't get my dealer rep on the phone. My dealer rep won't even drive by my dealership. All right. I know the Florida Yamaha dealer rep. That dude could sell ice to Eskimos. That guy could sell water to fish. He is killer. He is a stone cold killer. And I just listened to him. I'm just like, tell me how it works. I want to know. I want to learn. And he's like 10 years younger than me. I'm like, I don't care. You're a natural salesman. I want to know how it works. And that guy blows my socks off. He's amazing. All right. And I know the dealers who work with that guy, and I'm not name dropping Yamaha and getting people in trouble, but they all love him. They love that dude. So again, the solution is getting the right dealer reps to help and to really stoke up the dealers and help grow the dealer network. All right. The question is, what is needed first, the product or the dealers? That's a chicken or egg situation. I'm not going to solve that here. All right. Let's go over questions quickly. We got 8. I got 7.5 minutes. All right. Yeah. Gino wants one too. That's awesome. Okay. Let me scroll to the top and I'll try to go through these quickly. Guys, by the way, please scroll to the top of the live chat and click the links if you want to see all of the pictures of what the brake patent looks like. It's going to be the first link besides the first link is to our t-shirt store. Please buy our t-shirts if you like what we're doing. Number 2 is we'll take you to a recap article that we did. And if you scroll down, has all of the information, including the hyperlinks to the U.S. Patent Board, where the patent is for the brake system. It's really interesting learning. Go check it out and see how it works. It's really, really neat. Okay. Do you think they will finally do electric reverse? Yes, they have it. Kawasaki LX, great riding machine, but the ride system on the Yamaha Cruiser is much nicer for docking. It's fantastic. I love the ride. All right. Let's see. What market share? 5.5% is their market share. I'm posting all the videos on YouTube. All right. Kawasaki has 13%. No, they do not have 13% of the market share. They grew by 11% last year. That's good news. That's great. That's great. We're happy for that. We want to cheer on our friends in their success. All right. In my opinion, Kawasaki 3X is the coolest looking ski. To be honest, I'm going to tell you this. I think before the hood redesign, I think the 250s and 260s are better looking. I think they look like a Ferrari. I love the 250 and 260s. Okay. But I agree. I think they're really attractive. Okay. Chris McCluggage is the GOAT. Yeah. Dude, he and Rachel, they're like the power couple. I love those guys. They're the best. And like, we never socialize. And except for like on Facebook, like Rachel and I have like totally identical politics. And so it's really funny. We all like and share each other's posts. All right, let's see. Please, Cowie, upgrade your reverse lever. No, get rid of the reverse lever. Throw it in the trash. Get the brake. Get the brake. Get the brake. Get the brake. Okay. They'll be back if they have a reverse. Since the FX came out in 2019 and no changes 21, if I get a ski now, I'll get the Sea-Doo GTX Limited. 2022 Yamaha FX. Couple things are coming. If you're a Yamaha guy, be excited. I can't talk about them now. I'll share it for a later episode. But I know 2 things for certain that are coming. I'll wait for a 310 LX in 22 if it's confirmed that the ski will have decent upgrades. I can't confirm nor deny if anything's going to happen in the future. Let's see. As soon as they add reverse and some color gauges, I don't know. I could take or leave the gauge system. I mean, yeah, obviously LCD, like an old Casio watch, is kind of old. But you know what? The dash cluster is really easy to read. To be honest, I'd rather have the old analog gauges off of the FZR back and the analog gauges off of the old RX-TX 300s before the new hull design. I like analog gauges, but I'm old school. I'm not poo-pooing the new stuff, but I'd rather read analog gauges. Call me an old fart. All right. Let's see. STX hull is awesome on the buoy course. It's 22 years proven. It's a killer. It's a killer hull. It just seems funny when you're like, yeah, that hull has been unchanged since 04. Okay. We talked about manufacturer sponsons. Depends on the hull. Remember to upgrade the brake and modern setup. Okay. I think everyone's on the same page when it comes to the brake system. You're exactly right. That's why they have the lowest market share. Yeah, it's really the product. It's the product and market. It's the product and the dealer network. It's a 1-2 punch. Why did Sea-Doo get rid of the one-piece seats with the gas strut? Good question. My understanding was that it was heavy and they were cutting weight down. That and knowing they were going to the link system, that they could remove the back seat because they knew. I mean, guys, you have to understand is that when a new Sea-Doo comes out, it's 5 years old. They've been working on it for 5 years. Idiots like me find out about it 2 or 3 years maybe, but it's at minimum 5 years. My understanding is that it's a 6-year development process. That's my understanding. It's about 5 to 6 years. Okay. All right. Why would Cowie be holding other brands back by upsetting the Coast Guard? IAGs. No, I don't think they're. I don't think they're being like the goody two shoes in the classroom, going like, "Oh, teacher, you forgot to give us homework for the weekend." I don't think that's Cowie. I don't think that's them with the Coast Guard. I think they're just really playing it cool, primarily because they're pushing the horsepower numbers so high. Because nails that stick up get hammered down first. All right, let's see. It's the STXR. Yeah, I'm telling you, STXR. Bring that name back. Oh, do the analog dials. Let's see here. How would the hull hold up? I already answered. Worried about the pistons. Again, hypereutectic pistons. You guys can look it up. Hypereutectic. Hypereutectic has a really bad fail rate, not just in Kawasaki's. Being a Dodge guy, the original 5.7 Hemis that came out in 04, they all had hyper-euc pistons too, all powder pistons too. And anyone who put a Paxton supercharger or a turbo on the thing was blowing the guts out of their pistons. The way around that is really dramatically dropping the internal operating temperature of an engine. This Wednesday's video, the old video, I literally go into full-blown detail about internal operating temperatures on the Kawasaki's and what changed from 2013 to 14, what changed from the 300 to the 310. I go into a dramatic, but I go into really strong, really deep detail on that. Okay, so if you guys want to tune in again, make sure to check out that video. Why is the fuel capacity on the 5.7 more than the Sea-Doo? Because they can fit the big tank. That and they swallow so much gas. Much prefer a little more weight than losing weight and cost of strength and durability. The other thing is that weight gives you wetted surface. Means you have more hull in the water. Okay, you're heavier, you're deeper in the water. Why do Cowies do so good in rough water? Because they're not skipping over the top. They're banging through the waves. They are cutting through waves. Okay, I've got less than a minute here. Please, a new Ultra. I say leave it as long as you add the brake and give the cruiser people an option to go naturally aspirated full luxury. Okay. All right, guys, I think that is pretty much everything. I'm going to tune out. I got 29 seconds. Countdown clock. Guys, Pricing is not a problem. They're not more expensive than everyone else. Kawasaki went up for 2021 by $200 across the board. Sea-Doo went up across the board $900. But Yamaha went up $100. So that is a little bit of food for thought. And I'm going to leave it there. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys doing this. Again, the more views this gets, the more likely I'm going to keep doing the Sunday sessions. I'm not going to rip off the Sunday Night Live, but I will. A friend of mine does that for a car channel. But again, thanks again. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Oh, one last question. People keep asking about this dinosaur television. All right. Everyone is making fun of me for that television. Here's why we have this piece of crap 400-pound television. A, I got it for free. B, I'm a cheap SOB. C, it's what the kids play Nintendo on. And quite frankly, I don't want my kids hooked to video games. So I have a crappy television that's a big pain in the butt so they are deterred to use it. So that's me being a jerk dad who's super cheap. Anyway, that's all I want to say. Guys, thanks again. We're done. Have a good night. End live stream now.